Happy New Year, buddy.
Hey, Happy New Year to you, Mike. How are you?
I couldn't be better, man. I just spent 2 hours waiting for food at the local diner.
Oh, where'd you go?
Well, it's a Pied Piper.
Well, you should have expected that of all mornings. I mean, it's hungover feast.
Oh, I know, yeah.
I'm sure there this morning.
And oddly, there was a 6-top table of people wearing Packer uniforms and Badger hats, and I didn't know them or anything, but I saw them over there. And wouldn't you know that what their order came out, and it was the Boss, which is the ultimate eating challenge at the Pied Piper.
Shocker.
I know, it was like if you imagine like a big silver platter, literally heaped with pancakes, eggs, biscuits, hash browns, sausage, ham. It was just unbelievable. It has it's one of those deals, if you can eat it by yourself in 2 hours, you get it for free. Or otherwise, it's $40.
Jesus. It sounds like just one of many bad decisions people probably made last night and early this morning.
Oh yeah, I think they all go together, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I if there was any doubt if they were really my people from Wisconsin, they confirmed it with ordering the Boss.
Yeah. That sounds. Did you do anything fun last night?
No, we went over to some neighbor place, friends, hung out, pretty low key, really.
Sounds good.
I'm sure you were low key.
Yeah, pretty low key. However, I was awake at midnight, but it wasn't on purpose. So, I had Hayden duty around midnight or 1 o'clock or something like that, but he was up, and then I went out for a nice little run this morning. I've officially run every day this year, and
yeah, way to go, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm on a wicked streak, and but there's a ton of apartment complexes around where we live, and I kind of meandered my way through a lot of them to kind of see how many walks of shame I could see this morning, and there was quite a few.
Oh, nice. What time was that?
Between like 7 and 8 a.m. So like the sun's coming up, just enough time for people to want to get out of there and be like, if I can get out of there before the sun really comes up, this bad decision really won't concrete into my memory.
Uh-huh.
But the reality is, right about now, it's probably sinking in.
Yep. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Settled in watching the second NFL game, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But so I don't know. Honestly, the highlight, I think, of the night was I was actually up at midnight, too, and they went live on TV downtown Nashville. And Keith Urban was playing. And then he went right into 1999. And it was actually pretty awesome. But anyway, speaking of 1999, let's talk about our topic for today, which will be from bedtime to finish line at an Ironman. Basically, the 24 hours before the race, 24 hours including the race, going to bed, what we do from that whole process with eating, how we handle the race, blah, 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 all the way to the finish line. Is that correct?
That is, man. I like it. That's a good topic to me. It'll be nice to kind of go down memory lane, and I kind of stick to the same as much as I can to the same plan, at least before and after the race. So yeah, absolutely. I can start off if you want me to. We can kind of go the night before, and then I'll go to you. A lot of people do the big pasta dinner the night before. The big carbo load, which is for those of you listening, is a complete myth. So if you do it the night before, you're just sagging your body down with extra weight, and you're going to feel sluggish. If you want a carbo load at all, it doesn't need to be pounds and pounds of pasta. It needs to be 2 nights before a dinner, or if anything, the breakfast the morning before. So generally, my night before is I will have a steak and a baked potato, and that is my Michael Jordan special, and I try to get it down. Try to eat it before 6 p.m., which is difficult when you and I race together because getting you to eat before 6 p.m. is like pulling teeth.
Oh.
But I think we actually accomplished that this year in Wisconsin. But steak and potatoes is my pre-Ironman dinner.
And as much as we do contrast on our styles, and I think we'll throughout this podcast we'll see that because I am a later type of a guy. But I think we did the same thing. In fact, this last race I ate with you both of those meals, and the pasta was Friday, and then Saturday I think I had the steak and potatoes too. And I don't really feel like I went into the vegetable thing. I mean, that's like
What a waste.
what a waste, those vegetables.
Seriously. I mean, the night before a race, all it's good for is gas.
That's well, I mean, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're in a hotel room. You're going to be gassy enough after the race. Why start stinking up your room the night before?
Yeah. And I mean, it's a real serious question because a lot of gastro issues obviously are one of probably the biggest problems people have on their race, and sometimes I wonder if it's related to something like that, like maybe like hey, big salad or something the night before a race or.
Yeah, I mean, salad, yeah, I mean, lettuce is like 80% water in it. I mean, I think it's like the people who get broccoli and asparagus and stuff like that. I mean, like, yeah, come on. Do your body good and get some nice, simple, complex carbs in there.
Yeah, simple being the deal. So then, yeah, we did eat early. I think I was back in the room by 7, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we were. I mean, of course, we had a sweet setup spot, so we ate downstairs in the hotel and then walked upstairs when we were done. So, I mean, that's how I like to do it. I'd rather not eat out the night before, or eat as close. I like everything to be simple, and get in bed. And for me, it was a little bit different this year because Allie and I had an 8-week-old child sharing the bed with us the night before Ironman, so we couldn't really go to bed too early and sleep that great. But generally, I like to get in bed before 8. And I'm not one of those people who tries to go to sleep because I feel like that just lets your mind wander. And then you get frustrated. You're like, why can't I sleep? And then you obsess about it. You're like, why can't I sleep some more? So I really just will turn the TV on, watch a little bit of football. I think the Tennessee-Virginia Tech game was on, so I watched that until I kind of felt sleepy, and then I don't even know what time I turned off the lights and rolled over. But sip on EFS sports drink after dinner, and I'll sip on that through the night. Like if I wake up, I'll take a big swig. EFS is one of my favorite products made by First Endurance. Not sponsored by them yet, but we will be shortly. And I just sip on that, and I usually try to get in bed at least before 9. Or asleep before 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I like that tip because I am the guy who, like, immediately after, and I'll never learn, after dinner I went right into bed and I was like, I'm going to sleep. And, of course, I never get to sleep until before, it seems like midnight. I mean, I have been notorious about racing Ironman on 3 to 4 hours sleep and probably not solid hours. I don't know. But I went to bed and probably, I don't know. It was nice this year again because we were at Wisconsin and we were so close that, and everything was there. So, I mean, literally, we didn't have to be there I think we walked down there, left the hotel at like 5, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a much later departure than I'm used to. I've kind of gotten a little more lax as I've gotten older. And the fact that we got to walk was a huge plus. But yeah, it was we didn't I think get out of the hotel room until 5.
All right, but what did you do? All right, so I think I woke up at 4 o'clock. That is like the one day of the year that I set my alarm and actually get up the minute it goes off without hitting snooze because I have a supreme paranoia about oversleeping the race, and I've had nightmares about that where I've been literally running down to the swim start and the volunteers are pulling up the timing mat and I have to like dive over the top of it to get in the water in time and catch up with everybody else who's already started the race. So I get up immediately upon that first alarm, tired or not, and I think that was probably around 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I think that's around the same time. I probably get up at 3:45. I eat a little bit more. I will eat 2 whole sweet potatoes.
2,
Two. Yep. A shake for another shake made by First Endurance. It's their Ultragen shake cappuccino with some more like a gel type liquid they make. It's their EFS liquid shot mocha. I'll sip on that and eat the sweet potatoes, and that gets me about 1,000 to 1,100 calories. But first and foremost, I have a cup of coffee because I don't know about anybody else listening or you, but I've got to cleanse the system, if you know what I mean, before I fill the tank. It's kind of like getting your oil changed. You don't want to just dump good oil into bad oil. You got to empty that sucker and start over. So I have a cup of coffee. Make a little trip to the John, come back, feel nice and lean and mean, and then load up.
Then load up. Then when you eat these sweet potatoes, do you eat the skin or no?
Oh, dude, I'm all skin all the time.
Oh, okay. So you do it.
Yeah, love the skin.
It's the fiber.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I just I like to eat the whole thing. I don't like to waste.
I don't blame you. I mean, I like to do that too. I just wonder if it was a little bit different before a race with fiber and like.
Nah, I just put a little butter and brown sugar on there if I have it around, and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm the same way, except that I don't eat anything similar to that. I've got
You don't even have a routine. You just kind of go with like a bagel and whatever left downstairs from the overnight restaurant.
Pretty much, except that a few years back, I think I've written about this many times, but I asked one of the guys in the neighborhood who was a perennial Kona qualifier, a really good racer, Will Emery, and wait, that was his name, right? Yeah, Will.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, man, what's your he told me his pre-race breakfast secret was Pop-Tarts, and I think he said he eats 4 to 6 Pop-Tarts or something like that in the morning before a race because it's so simple and easy to digest and things like that. So I've kind of gone that route a little. I'll have a couple Pop-Tarts, and then I'll have like one of those crappy. I've had just really good luck with them. There's really bad convenience store kind of, Little Debbie-ish type, I guess, Danish things. And there's so the calorie count is probably pretty similar to what you're doing, and then I may have a banana, and then I'll start sipping on stuff or whatever. But my main, like you're saying, the main thing for me is just to get my stomach clear, and get some simple digestible calories in that aren't going to be a challenge for me to deal with. And I'm sure it's not ideal, but it is what it is, and it seems to work. And I haven't had any stomach issues or anything like that.
Yeah, me either. So it works for me, and I'm gonna stick with it.
Yeah. And then you're out there. We got down to the swim area probably a half hour before the race or so. And are you still sipping on?
Yeah, I'll sip on my EFS drink as soon as I finish that shake in the room. I'll just kind of sip on it till I start. I generally like to pee at least twice before I put my wetsuit on.
Oh.
But walk down to the start with another gel flask and my EFS drink. I won't take any more solids in. And I think there's really nothing like walking to the start of your biggest race. I think it's just a really cool opportunity to reflect. And I know it was my mom, Allie, Hayden. I think it was your mom and Chris. We just kind of meandered and strolled our way down, those main streets in downtown Madison towards. It's kind of like a silent herd. It's like everybody's just kind of making their way down. There's like this really quiet energy of silence. And that's definitely probably one of my favorite parts of the day.
Yeah, we got it. If you want to, my brother actually caught some of that on video, and it's in the beginning of the Ironman Wisconsin tribute video for 2016.
Sure,
so if anybody wants to go to Crushing Iron and go to the video page, it's sitting there to check out.
Yeah, it's a great video. But yeah, just sip on it until I don't take any time at all in transition. I load my bottles, I check my tires, and I'm probably in and out of there in 5 minutes. I mean, I just don't. It's too much nervous energy. I don't talk to anybody. I just like to get in and out of there because the more you look around, the more you start to question one thing and the other. What are they doing? Or what are they wearing? Or what are they thinking? Or what's that they're drinking? Or what are you pumping your tires to? And I get in and out of there and just get back to familiar faces and family.
Yeah, and what do you pump your tires to that morning?
Yeah, well, I used to do the traditional, 105 to 110,
Mm-hmm.
which is what everybody thought was like the fastest rolling resistance. But now there's new studies out there showing that the more difficult the pavement and the more rough the pavement is, the lower your PSI needs to be so it can absorb it, and you actually get better rolling resistance. And so I think I did 95 in the front and 100 in the rear.
Oh wow, see. Yeah, I remember the first time I did Wisconsin, dude. I don't know where I came up with this, but I think I rolled at 120 that first time I did it up there. And then ever since then, I've heard that same kind of stuff about 100 to 110, and I think I just went in at about 106 or something like that on both. And I just don't. That's just kind of a topic of like overthink for me. So I just want it to
Yeah.
be, have them both about the same and make sure that everything's rolling right and get the heck out. Because I'm always afraid that I'm gonna like screw up the stem or something when I'm,
Hmm.
I just want the bike to be fine. And get it. I get it kind of set the night before, and then hopefully it's right about the same and hasn't lost much, and I just kind of leave it as what it is and don't worry
Yeah.
about the PSI too much. Um, and as we're standing around, I do the same thing. I'm a big scratch guy, so I just really feel good about scratch, and I sip on that usually most of the morning. A little bit of water, but mostly the same deal. And then I usually end up doing. Especially with the floating start, I think I probably end up going to the bathroom in the water because I'm in there 20 minutes, and hopefully get that out of your system, and then get ready to go. What are you thinking about before that race, the swim? I mean,
The swim, my swim is always my approach is always just swim your race and swim your potential. Don't chase anybody else. Don't, try to follow anybody else and put too much energy on drafting. Just swim your own race and swim your own feel. And I will say I have perfected the art of peeing while swimming and still moving.
yeah, I've
Which
got it too.
Yeah, which is just, I mean, talk about having an extra tool in the box. It's just to be able to do that, I think is a huge advantage. I think pros should be mandatory. It'll probably win and lose a race somewhere down the road. Um,
But
but
what an
really,
amazing feeling that is too, actually.
oh man, it really is. Yeah, it's seriously, I feel like Old Faithful out there, like swimming, and they finally catch one like elongated stroke, and bam, there it goes. I feel sorry if somebody's trying to draft off of me, but hey, warm water is warm water. Um, but really just smooth. I'm a above average front of the pack swimmer, so I've usually got pretty clean water, and it's sight when I need to swim smooth and just think about staying patient and going over my plan for the day.
Yeah. I've perpetually been sort of that in-between swimmer that on a great day we could probably go out there and get out in front in some clean water, but I'm always too paranoid about it. It's starting too fast, so I typically side with caution and swim into my race, and then maybe by halfway through I can start picking up tempo a little bit if I feel good. But for me, mainly, it's just I try to hope that my anxiety past doesn't come forward, and I just slowly ease into the race. And I remember, usually about halfway through, I'll be like super stoked because I know that I found my rhythm, and I know that I'm going to be okay. And it's such a relief to get to that point. So I just always side for starting within control, and that whole idea of trying to draft and then that sort of thing. I just get that out of my head. If it happens, I guess it happens, but I never try to find somebody to swim with or anything
Yeah.
like that. I'm usually more concerned about, like you said, swimming my own race and finding my own open water and just you know pacing it out.
What do you feel like when you get out of the water? What are you thinking about in transition?
Uh that's a good question, man. It's always an unbelievably awesome feeling to hit the shore and get out. And really what I try to do, mainly what I try to do when I come out of the water is to pull back on the reins, because the last thing I want to do is just start getting my, I'm already jacked up enough, and I'm really, really trying to hold back on that transition run, but I usually don't walk. I try to make sure that I'm always moving and jogging just to, I don't know. I guess I'm not thinking about anything. That's a really good question. I just go up and I want to make sure that I'm not breathing too damn hard when I start changing into my bike clothes. And that's really the tallest order of business for me. And when I get I'm pretty limited in there. I guess I wear gloves this year. A lot of times I won't wear gloves because you gave me a hard time about that once. But
Yeah, I did.
But at Wisconsin, I think it's necessary because you're up in the horns a lot, and it helps. I mean, I assume you wore gloves this year, didn't you?
I've never worn gloves.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
No, sorry, man.
That's okay. I mean, when you're in aero a lot, you don't need them as much. But like, I feel like at Wisconsin it was a little bumpy and the whole 9 yards. I just put on. But other than that, what are you thinking? Just going out? You're just trying to ease into that next phase too, right?
Yeah, this year I felt really, really good coming out of the water. Got my wetsuit off, got it stripped, got my sleeves up, and I took a one huge like big swig of a gel flask in transition, like 100 and something calories, just to kind of get ahead of the game before I even got on the road, because those first 2 or 3 miles is especially at Wisconsin, no matter where you are, it's, you're kind of, there's just a lot of traffic, and there's not a lot of time to get up or drink and hydrate and take a gel. Or people are standing up, putting shoes on, swerving everywhere, turning. And so I try to get ahead of the game with a little bit of gel in transition, and then just, hop on the bike. And really the first, 20 to 30 miles, if I feel like I'm pacing it just right, then I know I need to slow down. And if I feel like I'm going too slow, I know that I'm going just right. And really, that's kind of my mantra on the bike is be patient, and be patient, and be patient, and don't chase people. Just stay on top of your hydration, and think everything that I do on the bike, I traditionally think about how it's going to impact my run.
Okay. Because when you get out of the water, I mean, obviously, I think it's kind of a danger zone for a lot of people with the stomach thing again, coming out of the water. So it's like you need to hydrate probably, because you obviously haven't done anything for the last hour or so as far as putting water or any kind of nutrition into your body. So when you said the gel flask, what do you mean? What is that? Just like a gel, or is it like a premix?
I've got these plastic gel flasks that can hold up to like 5 actual gels. But it allows you to, the EFS liquid gel that I purchase for now from EFS the gel just comes in a huge bottle. And so instead of just wasting plastic and, killing the earth, I choose to use those big bottles, and I can just dump, 500 and something calories into this gel flask. So I take one big swig is usually about 100 to 115 calories.
Okay. So it's not, it's that I've had that before. That, like, the one I had was like maybe a mocha or something like that.
Kona mocha.
It's amazing. But it's really a mixture. It's almost like a thicker shake-ish type deal.
Yeah.
But so then you get on the bike, and like, I know it's important to get hydrating, but sometimes people's stomach can feel queasy out of the water. At least I know mine can.
Yeah, I always tell my athletes my first bottle up front is filled with either just water or very, very like diluted to where it's not strong with my sports drink. A lot of people make the mistake of going straight to this hardcore carbohydrate rich drink with no base and nothing for it to hit their stomach with. And so that's what generally gives a lot of people some intestinal issues and stomach problems is they start crushing it and they have nothing in their base. So I just tell people to, take your first 12 to, 8 to 12 ounces of just plain water and kind of get something in your stomach. So the drinks and the carbs and the sugars that you're about to put in your body have somewhere to settle and then somewhere to start to absorb and not just hitting on a straight flat stomach. Because by the time, people, let's say the average person, when we start at 7 a.m., you're going to stop eating at like 6:15. And you've only eaten a small bit of a breakfast. Go back the night before, so over like a 14-hour span, you're really not consuming that many calories. And then you're going to go swim for, what? And most athletes, an hour and 15 to 2 hours. And so by that point, you're pretty much going on empty. And then you just want to start chugging stuff down. It doesn't go over real well. So starting with water is a great place because you're getting hydrated, and then you can start to pack that water with nutrients and carbs and make it a little more digestible as the ride goes on.
Yeah, that makes sense. I usually start with 1 bottle of water up front, and that's the main bottle, and then I have a backup because I always just start with Scratch again because I like it, and I have a bottle of Scratch maybe with 1.5 or 2 scoops in there, and the front bottle is water, and that's the one I sip on for the first 5 to 10 miles. And mix, and then I start mixing that in. But basically, my plan is, what is it, about every 15 miles I have an aid station?
Yeah, usually.
So my plan really has become simplified to the point of I go 1 bottle of water and then 1 bottle of usually Gatorade. I just kind of fall into their mix, and I know you don't do that, but for me it's and I try to force those things down over the course of an hour, more or less. And just stay with that plan the whole way. And plus, but I also eat. I have to have solid, so I go with like something like a power bar, every hour ish. And then
I go straight liquid.
You do?
Yeah. I have a hard time taking anything solid down. Like for the whole race, I do nothing but drink or gel. And I'll sip on my EFS sports drink, and then I'll take a gel flask. A finish off 1 gel flask for the first 56 and make sure I finish off another one before I get off. And so that's about, in the gel alone is 1,200 calories. And with the EFS and some of the Gatorade, I'll take in another, 1,000. But I have a hard time stomaching the solid stuff.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I'll go through and I'll grab bananas occasionally too, or half bananas on the aid stations, and just, I don't know what it is. I just need the solid, I guess. But that EFS thing, I've used that in the past where I've thought ahead to order it or whatever, but it's really nice to have towards the end of the bike for me. It's just a completely different texture and taste and everything, and it feels like a solid to me. So the last 10 to 15 miles, I like to kind of sip on one of those because it just changes your whole mouth chemistry.
Yeah.
And that's usually the worst thing, obviously, for a lot of people. Just that whole Gatorade thing keeps coming and coming and coming. And
yeah.
And another thing I do is I usually keep like pretzels or something in my bento box and just suck on those and just get the salt side of that to balance out. But anything else you think about on the bike?
No, it's always, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you're kind of I forgot. I hate to put words in your mouth, but sort of like that ease in for 20 miles and then sort of like feel out that first loop, and then right when the second loop starts, that's when you want your athletes to go to work, right? Is that pretty much?
Yeah, exactly. And that's when I want them to be able to go to work. A lot of people, a lot of the rides that I prescribe from athletes is 2 hours, easy riding and then hard work at the end. And so it kind of prepares you to be able to move faster when most people are slowing down. And that's where you get the biggest bang for your buck, is to be able to pace and be steady and push solid power in the last 30 miles. Because, for example, from a number standpoint, everybody's pushing, most people will push for the first 80. Let's say you're both pushing, but, cyclist A is pushing just a little bit harder than you, and you're just kind of staying steady. And they only, are going to travel 0.5 miles an hour faster. Well, the last 30 to 35, if you're averaging 20 and they bonk and they're averaging 18, that's a big difference. And so that's when I tell athletes to kind of start to work steady. Um, listen to your body. If you there's no reason to try to make or break your race at mile 80. It needs to be more of a, I'm preparing to run well. And as long as you can, I always, the bike and run is a cause and effect. Um, and that's how you need to approach it.
Hmm. So, okay, so you're basically telling me to those last 30 to 40 miles, just whatever will help benefit your run at that point. I mean, because you've worked for 30 or 40 miles before that, and then it's like you got to kind of recalibrate or regroup your mind. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, it can totally ruin your race. I mean, if you're chasing a mile per hour average on your bike,
Which I do.
which most people do,
Yeah.
and you push so much harder the last 30 miles to hold it or to get it, it's gonna crush your run. I mean, and it does. I mean, that's why so many people walk. You see so many people walking the marathon, and even at mile one, and you're like, there is no such thing as a good bike followed by a bad run. No such thing. You just overbiked, or you biked out of your actual ability. So it wasn't a good bike. You just blew your load and you were irresponsible in racing. So that wasn't a good bike. You were just doing it. That's all I say: bike for show, run for dough. And a lot of people do that, and no matter what the distance, but especially at Ironman, is they do it. They bike for show and then they run for no dough because they walk and they look like the Pillsbury Doughboy. It's more like it.
Right. Hey, and we did talk about this a little bit going into the race, but I remember you had looked up some statistic about how much, especially this is just specifically to Wisconsin and the hills.
Hmm.
We had talked about briefly, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but you had looked up something where it talked about how much time you could actually coast, or was that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, it was the percentage of time you could coast on the Wisconsin course, and I think it was like something between like 18 to 22% of the time.
Really?
Yeah, was how much you could actually coast because there's so many downhills. So for people who are being very, very, very conservative, then you're looking at about, 70, 75 miles of work, coasting the rest. But, you got to have the ability to push up those hills and, you know, take it easy on the downhills versus crush yourself going uphill and you're having to use the downhill as recovery. So you're really not getting an advantage. You're just trying to get your breath back.
Yeah. And I think I told, because you asked me what my percentage, what I thought I coasted on, and I think I might have said something very similar to that based on my first time I did Wisconsin, which I was having all kind of user error, and I was having a hard time keeping my chain on my big ring. So I think I rode the entire day in my small ring, which forced me to coast down every hill. I couldn't even,
Hmm.
it wouldn't have made any sense. And I think in the,
And spin up the hills.
yeah, and spin up the hill. So I think in the long run, it actually, I mean, I think I rode a 602 or 603 that year, which is pretty damn good, for your first time up there. I felt pretty good about that ride, and I was, probably top 30 or 40% or 30 or 40 in my age group. But that's with zero pedaling down hills, you know, and it probably saved my day, really, in retrospect. Um, but I just found that kind of interesting because that's all comes back to the patience piece. If
Hmm.
you know, I mean, it never fails when I'm out on these races because I like to give the uphill a little bit more energy anyway, and I'm always passing somebody, and then they come flying by me in the downhill. It's just like a whole day of that, and I know that I'm working steady and strong uphills, and I'm passing these people, and they're probably laboring and killing themselves going up the hills, and then they just come out and just gangbuster down, and they're never stopping. They're never recovering or resting or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and then you're coming into the run. Um, any specific like pre-run nutritional moves that you're thinking
Uh,
about?
no, not nutrition. I mean, I'll generally up my cadence just a little bit. The last mile or two of the bike, is to just kind of spin out, like make sure my RPMs are around 90 or maybe even above, just to kind of go ahead and make the the run off the bike legs not so stiff, is because your run cadence is generally so much faster than your bike cadence, and that's what takes a lot of people. Your legs feel like cement. That's what takes them a long time, for people to kind of get used to the feeling of running off the bike. And so I usually will up my cadence somewhere to more of a run cadence and light to kind of flush some of that nastiness out of my legs, get my legs more accustomed to the faster cadence. And then once I hop off, it's time to get to work. And usually I'm telling myself to be super, super patient and absorb and just take my time. It's usually, and I usually pace. That's probably honestly one of my biggest advantages is I'm not the fastest athlete, but I'm generally one of the smarter, more patient ones, and that's usually when I can kind of crawl people back. And even though I ended up running a pretty decent split this year at Wisconsin, I totally went out way too fast. I went out. Oh, dude, I went out way too fast. I was trying to make up time from my flats, and I've been running well all year long, and I just took off, dude, like a bat out of hell. I ended up averaging 8:28s, but man, let me see if I can pull up. Yeah, dude. So I'm looking at my mile splits right now. My first miles were 7:24, 7:26, 7:58, 7:45. 7:46, 7:40, 6:43, 7:36, 7:52, 7:41, 8:06, 7:48, 7:32, 7:08. So right about mile 14, still clicking it like a 7:40 pace. Mile 15, 8:20, 8:20, 8:45, 8:45, and that's when it began to creep up. And I totally lost it towards the end because I went out too fast. But so don't use that as an example. But generally, it's about don't race the first 18 thinking about the whole race. Race the first 18 thinking about the last 8.2. Mile 18, that's when you can pick it up if you think you have it. And usually people don't, but at least you pace yourself so you're not going to fall off. But generally that's kind of my just be patient and just pick people off one at a time.
I felt pretty good. I didn't feel anywhere near as bad as I usually would feel getting off the bike. And I came out of there with this weird feeling of like, okay, I have a marathon to go and I have no idea how I feel. So I kind of like, but I think I was a little bit smarter, well, a lot smarter than you probably. I was probably in the 9.5 to 10 minute range for the first. I think one of my miles, and I don't have a record of it, but I do know that I got to mile 2, and I think I was just doing my little chrono watch, and I swear it said like 7:30 pace or something for that second mile. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's not going to happen, and so I backed it down, and I just tried to keep that first whole loop around 9 to 9:30, and it worked out perfectly. But I didn't feel like I was going to be able to get stronger on the second loop, so I just tried to keep it there. And I actually started walking aid stations. When I come on, I normally run now with water, or I like to run with scratch, so I carry a belt with a bottle in it, and then I'll just refill that at a water stop mile 6 or whatever and throw another thing of scratch in there. But towards the end of that, I just started walking the aid stations, and my average went from 9 to 9:30 to 9:30 to 10:30 or something in there. And it was just more of a play it safe strategy on the second loop for me this time. I felt pretty good, but I didn't feel like it was worth going after a really great second loop, because I knew I was right on the edge. I don't know, there was something there that just was telling me that I didn't quite have it, and I really didn't have a specific goal to shoot for at that point, because my at that point I was just trying to keep it under 12 hours again, and maybe quite a bit under it, rather than trying to go for an 11:30 and just blow my whole wad up on that second loop.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of that, I just start eating whatever is in front of me, basically. Cookies, cookies, bananas, oranges, grapes, pretzels. I mean, I was doing the whole 9 yards on the second loop, and I don't think that's necessarily the most optimum thing, but for whatever reason, my blood sugar chemistry gets a little out of whack, which I'm sure most people do.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common. I generally, again, take a flask with me, and then I'll alternate aid station 1. I'll go ahead and hit the Coke and go water Coke.
Oh yeah.
And next aid station water Gatorade, and then I'll just alternate until I'm over. And if
I like that plan, dude.
Generally, I mean, a lot of people do. I mean, I haven't suggested it to anybody and gotten negative feedback from it. And that's I've always gone that way. If anything, I'll end up taking in more Coke as the race gets on, not just because of the sugar and the carbs and all the other fun stuff in it, but at that point in the race, you're just more mentally tired than anything. I mean, you've been up since 3:45, probably didn't sleep well, and oh, by the way, you've already, swam 2.4, biked 112, and ran, 14 to 16. So you're kind of running on E, physically, mentally, emotionally, and the caffeine just kind of keeps you alert, keeps you aware and present, and you kind of can stick with your plan and be a little more mindful and focused rather than just kind of, it's hard to walk on Coke. It just is, because you take it. I mean, I got to get going. I can finish this, rather than just kind of continuing to down water and Gatorade and, treating every aid station like a Golden Corral.
Mm-hmm. I could see that too. Yeah, I do the same thing. I ended up drinking a lot more Coke, it seems like, on the second loop. But I like the fact that you're talking about coming out with water, Gatorade, then water, Coke. Like, at least sort of forcing yourself to stay off that Coke. It's no different than, having a 1 cup of coffee and then having 2 and then having 3, and it's almost a diminishing marginal return. So if you keep that caffeine out of your slate as long as you can, an overload at least, you'll probably benefit more from it at the end rather than having some kind of weird caffeine crash or something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that, if anybody's listening and that hasn't tried the Coke in the course, once you go Coke, you never go back.
Exactly.
You can't try Coke for miles 1, 2, and 3, and then thinking go Gatorade the rest of the way, because you're going to have that sugar crash. So once you have it, you've got to continue like put it in your system and keep that sugar, caffeine, simple carb buzz going. Because if you don't, then you are gonna crash. And so once you start, you better keep it up. And people, I think, will realize when they start to bonk that they just kind of forgot to keep taking in the sugar and the caffeine. It's not really so much a physical bonk as it is a just awareness to continually take in those nutrients.
Yeah, and frankly, if you start neglecting the water part of that too much too, you're talking about dehydration, and it's almost like you have to force that little bit of water in there too. It's like I always had a thing where, even just in normal life, if I had a Coke, I would always I had a thing where I would always have to follow it up with a glass of water, just for a habit. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's like, because water is like, that's like the kind of the last thing you want to start drinking at some point in that marathon. But you really have to almost force feed the water. At least I think so.
Yeah.
Because it's just not exciting, but it's like crucial.
Yeah, it is. It's vital.
Vital. We've proven that over time. Humans.
Yes, we have.
We've shown that. What about you come out of that T2 and you lather on that sunscreen, do you, buddy?
No. I don't worry about the sunscreen.
No, and it's kind of one of those double-edged swords.
No, yeah, this is your thing. Go for it. I mean, here we are, nutrition, pretty much done with talking about the run, and you're like, oh, I forgot to talk about my little sunscreen tip. I'm gonna go ahead and revert back to T2 so I can tell the whole world about this sunscreen myth that I've got. Go ahead, Mike. Everybody, Mike Trolley.
Okay, so here's what I'm feeling. There was I've never been a sunscreen guy, and in 2014 I went over and did Louisville, and it was sunny and 100 degrees. So I'm like, okay, I better do the sunscreen here. And coming out of I wore a little bit on the bike on my shoulders and whatever, but I was splashing so much on me. I think a lot of it walked up. But coming out of T2, I just went all in 100% on the sunscreen with the body latherers, and they just covered me with that stuff. And I came out of T2 feeling pretty good off the bike, even though it was 100 degrees, and got to mile 1, and I just felt suffocated. So I just want to bring up the principle. The question actually is, does sunscreen clog your pores and make it harder to sweat and cool down? And I'm 100% behind that theory. If you want to debate it right now, I'm listening.
You know what? I'm not even gonna go there. I'm just gonna kind of let you have your moment. And when we start getting 1- and 2-star reviews, I think the people will have spoken.
Oh man, this is unbelievable, man.
Yeah, did you hear the Crushing Iron podcast? They're pro skin cancer. That's what it's gonna turn out to.
Listen, dude, don't even get me started. I'm a naturalist. I believe that if you take care of your insides and you take care of your nutrition and take care of you have to be outside, and your skin has to learn how to take care of it.
Yeah, you're about as much of a naturalist as the Mormons with flat screens. Okay.
All right. Well, anyway, I'm not even going to talk about that.
Yeah,
back to the finish line.
We're gonna get off your sunscreen box. Finish line. I mean, we can't say enough good things about that. Honestly, this is the first year that I've actually been able to eat anything substantial after a race. And like you cross the finish line, and most people are just like, I'm gonna go gorge on 10 things. And usually, I mean, honestly, I can only just drink Coke and Gatorade and just kind of get my fluids back. If I usually eat anything, it really upsets my stomach. And I'll go on my own little soapbox rant.
Whoa, here we go.
The people that offer like bananas and fruit and grapes, like, get that crap out of here. Like, I want to
post tent.
Yes, like, I don't really. You think I'm looking for healthy food? I'm looking for a Snickers. I'm looking for a Coke. I'm looking for some pizza. You can take this other stuff out of here. And don't, and they're gonna do this from now on, but don't offer me some crappy Beachbody chocolate shake when I cross the finish line either. First it was chocolate milk, now it's this Beachbody chocolate shake. And I don't want to mix with water either. If I'm gonna have one. So just as if Ironman's listening, you stop that.
Okay.
But yeah, that this year it was talked to Fam and Allie and Mom, and they went back to the hotel and got my flip flops and change of clothes, and I sat under the tent and had like 2 or 3 Cokes maybe, definitely some pretzels. I don't think there's anything better than pretzels. A couple cookies and like 3 or 4 slices of pizza. And I had the sweetest, like most awesome little volunteer lady who sat like 2 chairs next to me because I was looking a little palish, I think. I mean, I was definitely I think I was one of the first 80 to 90 finishers. And so there was basically one volunteer for every athlete, and she was just like my own little waitress, and it was outstanding. And I just gorged, and I loved it.
Yeah, this year, after I made my decision about the second loop, the beginning of the second loop, I made my decision that my goal was just to keep it under 12 because I really couldn't get anything else. So I had a little leeway there. And one of the things I remember most about this year was that I remember the last 3 miles very clearly. The first time I did a race, and most of the time when I run the last 3 miles, it's just a complete blur. But this time I actually sort of soaked it in. And one of the coolest things, and for me, was just running the other way, knowing that I was almost done, and seeing those people come out on their second, or they're probably just the beginning of their second loop for the most part. Was like, I remember looking at them like, oh, man, I'm so glad I'm not them. But it was like I was looking at faces, and I was looking at people on the side of the road because I wasn't trying to hammer to finish my race, and I really did sort of soak in that whole last 2-3 miles, and especially around the Capitol. I just I wasn't jogging, but I was really running light and looking around and soaking it in. There's nothing like that finish really to me. And coming around the last couple turns and just going down the carpet and then, taking my time. People talk about that and sucking it in and soaking it up. And I really felt like I did it this year. And then I, overdid it with the camera at the end, which was...
Yeah, we've touched on that before. You kind of overdid it.
Yeah, I did.
You were a diva.
I mean, who steps back and does an encore at the Ironman camera?
Yeah, and I'm on the results page still from looking up my splits, so I need to probably check and see if they DQ'd you yet for that.
Let's cross the line already.
Yeah, I think so.
It was the volunteer's fault. She said, "Hey," we walked under the camera, and she's like, "Hey, you need to look back at the camera." I said, "Where is it?" And I went back, and I just hammed it hard. And then I went in. I think, were you still in there eating when I got? Probably not. You're about an hour.
No, I was standing with Jim and Rebecca and your mom and everybody else, cheering for you to run through. And then after you ran through and we talked for a minute, I jetted back to the hotel.
Yeah. I was actually a little bit woozy. The first thing my buddy said to me when I came across the finish line, Ironman, arms in the air, and I look over the side, and my buddy Marty goes, "Man, your eyes are red." I was like, "Man,
don't you love that?
You
walk into work one day and somebody's like, "Are you sick?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "No, I'm not sick." You're like, "Oh, you kind of look sick," or "Are you tired?" You're like, "No, I feel great."
Yeah, but now I feel bad. Thank you for saying that.
Oh well,
Not you, but I mean whoever says it. Like when he said that, I'm like, oh man, now I'm subconscious about my eyes because my contacts were probably sucking the air and oxygen out of my pupils.
Hey, we could get a sponsorship from Clear Eyes.
I need something, man. I need it. So I guess that's it. And then we went back to the hotel and relaxed, pretty much.
Yeah, I think we met back down in the hotel lobby again for our fourth meal in a row there. And I remember I had a big fat cheeseburger with some fries, and then proceeded to sleep like absolute crap, like I always do.
Yeah, you did?
No, dude, I always sleep terrible. I always sleep terrible the night after a race. I mean, I think it's just kind of it's kind of like pulling a car that's been going 100 miles an hour for 2 hours into the garage and leaving the engine running. I'm still running on hot. I'm still on fumes. My body's still churning. I'm achy. It hurts to move. I didn't wear any sunscreen because I don't want to clog my pores. And I got sunburn, and it's just uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable.
But I always sleep like crap. That is my least favorite part of the bedtime to finish line is that part afterwards that nobody talks about. It's just how crappy you sleep. Anybody that sleeps really well, I hate you.
Yeah. Hey, I have one final tip, end of the night tip. Can I give it?
Go for it, man.
This is a pretty good one. For years, because frankly, after you do an Ironman, you stink, and there's salt everywhere, and if you're like me, you go to the bathroom on the bike quite often, so you just stink, and your shoes are bad, and the whole 9 yards is not a pretty sight or smell. So what I did this year was normally I will soak everything, wash it old school in the tub or the sink and, kind of soap it up and wash it. Well, this year I went back straight in my uniform or my kit with my shoes on and took a shower and just basically soaked up my whole kit. That's not bad, is it?
That's not a bad idea.
So I basically soaped my kit like it was my skin, and I was just taking a shower, and then I washed that all off, and then I took it off and kept showering after that. But so yeah, it really saved a major floating mess in my bathtub, which I used to soak my shoes in there and everything else. But this year I just soaped up my shoes and just showered in the kit, and then bring it out, and it smelled great the next morning with no mess.
I like it, man. That is a pretty solid tip.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pretty proud of that one.
Yeah, you are. Big thanks to the listeners for throwing in so many reviews lately. We've got, I think, up to eight awesome reviews. Had some great feedback from our last few episodes. I do want to give a special shout out to Chris Gerard. He's a friend of ours, a fellow podcaster at the Lost in Transition podcast.
Yeah.
And he, for those of you who may or may not still be listening, who might doubt the How to Not Suck at Swimming podcast, he sent me a nice little email today saying that before listening to the podcast, he was barely able to scratch averaging like a 200 or a 100 at like a 2-minute pace. And he is, as I would say, now he says that I'm down to 150 as of a couple weeks ago. And his 150 best times have fallen down to a 135 and 42 respectively. So just in the course of 6 weeks, he's gone from a plus 2-minute 100 swimmer down to a 150. Just from taking the tips from the podcast. So if you're out there listening, I'm telling you, words to live by, break the stigma.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, and we've been getting more and more email at crushingiron@gmail.com. And if you got any questions, we'll just answer them. It's that simple. Just send us some emails, and if you got any questions about this podcast or whatever, crushingiron@gmail.com, and we'll hook you up. We're getting actually a lot of people are emailing, so it's been pretty cool. And we thank you guys for listening. I would like to extend a happy New Year wish to everyone out there, and it's time to start training, people.
Yep, hop on it. If you haven't hopped on, hop on now.
Yep. It's a deal. Hang around for a second, Robbie, and let's just say goodbye. It's been a pleasure, and I'm excited about upcoming races and podcasts.
That's it, man. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday.
Deal. See you, buddy.
See ya.